Voice note number 40 on the 16th of October 2024. We're looking at some of the caveats and things that the dispatchers, but also, I mean, it does apply to the administrators as well, because the administrators, look, I think I've said it before, but this is a good opportunity to say it. Administrators need to oversee what the dispatchers do. Admins, you are liable for anything that the dispatcher does. So if a dispatcher, for example, provides medical advice, well, then please delete it. They're not allowed to do it. It's as simple as that. Dispatchers don't take it personally. It's illegal. Therefore, it has to come off. So whatever we're doing at the moment with regards to some of the caveats and that, I mean, actually, the admins can get involved and take control of the group, which is your ultimate responsibility. And this is where it now comes to the point where, for example, we've just had a situation where outside of a school or in a school, whichever, it's irrelevant, anything to do with schools have to be handled in an exceptionally different manner, as well as a suicide incident. And there's a twofold reason for this. First and foremost, and I'm not saying it's the most important, the school structures have a very strict code of conduct that has to be adhered to by its staff members. For example, and this is based on a previous incident on a totally different group, school teachers may not post information into the public domain of anything that's happening inside of the school. And here there's multiple reasons for that. One, schools have a very specific emergency plan that must be adhered to. Those plans involve documented, or at least should involve specifically documented emergency procedures to be followed. And it'll include SAPS, it'll include Metro, it'll include fire, it'll include social development, it'll include social workers, it'll include the school governing body, and it will include CPFs and block watchers and neighborhood watchers. So when a school teacher posts a message on a group, they can and usually are put through a disciplinary process. So we need to be very careful about sharing information regarding schools. The second reason, well, before I go on to the second reason, let's have a look at it might not be a teacher who posts that information, but it could be a student who either posts it directly to a group, or where that student passes that information on to their parent. Or you got a school teacher passing that information on to a family member. And now the parent or the family member comes and posts it out on the group. We sit with the exact same problem. The student probably won't be disciplined because that doesn't apply to them, but it will create absolute havoc in terms of the actual school's procedures, emergency procedures. And the school's procedures, they have to, in the event that a pupil, for example, is now being subjected to, like the pointing of a firearm, the teacher should take that up to the office. It should be dealt with by the principal. It should be logged immediately by the school with SAPS directly. SAPS might, in actual fact, put that out. We do have SAPS members on the groups. They might, in actual fact, receive it themselves, and then they're requesting assistance from the group itself, at which point the contact on scene does become a problem child overall. And in all honesty, the school's telephone number should be utilized as the contact on scene. So to help dispatchers when a school is involved, ask the person to provide the school's contact telephone number instead of a contact on scene. And then whoever answers that switchboard is the one that will have to, in actual fact, verify that assistance is required. And on that point, I want to take this into voice note, into the next voice note, as to what we can do if we don't have a contact on scene. Right, voice note 41 as we move on with the admin and dispatcher training. It is the 21st of October 2024. In the last voice note, I was discussing the request for assistance being posted by staff members, especially at schools. And I raised a couple of concerns with regards to the teachers themselves shouldn't in actual fact be posting that information out, as it might be in contravention of their various school policies and procedures. However, in this voice note, I want to cover specifically the entire situation around causing panic. And this now becomes an extremely difficult situation to deal with because, number one, as I said in the previous voice note, students can post on social media a situation that has arisen in the same manner that the school teachers can post an incident. Now, the teachers and the students could make a particular claim. For example, they're shooting at us. Meantime, it is gunshots that might in actual fact be fired a block away or a couple of 100 meters away. And inevitably, what actually transpires here is that once it reaches the social media domain, and in particular that of the parents of the students, regardless of whether it was a student or a teacher that posted that type of information, what actually can happen now is parents could rush like crazy to the school and there's nothing happening. Or they could rush to the school and actually get shot at themselves if there is a shooting taking place outside of the school. So I think as administrators in particular, but for the benefit of dispatchers, the minute that this information is actually made available within your groups, again, one has to be a bit diligent in terms of how you're going to handle it, and perhaps delete it off of the group, or get an admin to delete it off the group, or ask the poster, the person who actually posts that message on the group, to remove it and to speak with you privately. And then in a private either telephone call, WhatsApp telephone call, or cell phone telephone call, have the teacher in particular make contact with the school's office, and let the school's office rather put it out on social media. Now, many times students might post it to their family members, and then their family members could post it out on the group. Try and do the same thing. Have the post removed. Have a discussion with the family member. As a dispatcher, most definitely make contact with SAPS and notify SAPS of the incident, even though you might not have a particular contact on scene. In your own personal capacity, you can use your own contact number. And I've said this before in previous voice notes and other training. Even if you phone 112 or use IER or Normola, you can use your own contact number. And when SAPS makes contact with you, you can say to them, look, this is the message that's being received on a WhatsApp emergency channel, and ask them to investigate the incident. That way, there is still a response that has been undertaken by SAPS. Look, it becomes a different story altogether. For example, we had the school in Eldorado Park. One of the classrooms was set alight. There's not much you can do about that. Parents pitched up there. There was total chaos. There's not much that you as a dispatcher or an admin can do except notify fire, notify SAPS, get both of them out there, try and establish if there are injuries. If there are injuries, then of course dispatch or request GPG or any other services to assist. So again, it's something that you have to take into account. Do you allow panic to be created within a community, or do you try and manage that panic as best possible and not have parents rushing out to the school? You know, they become frantic. They can be involved in motor vehicle accidents. They can run into or arrive at a dangerous situation and end up getting shot themselves. So just consider that moving forward as well. So I'm going to end voice note number 41 now, and we will move on with the next one. Voice note number 42, 21 October 2024. I think bringing up one of those controversial subjects with regards to causing panic as a result of messages that are posted on WhatsApp and social media. I think this is a good opportunity to also bring in a section specifically on missing persons and how to deal with missing persons on a WhatsApp group. But there's a second aspect that I will cover in the forthcoming voice notes as well. I'm not too sure how far we will extend the voice note numbers with regards to missing persons. Now, first and foremost, I'd like to say that all administrators and dispatchers should take note that missing persons can be broken down into multiple categories. You can get adult males who go missing. You can get adult females that go missing. But you can't consider them as being the exact same type of missing person. And the reason I say that is 9 times out of 10, or for a vast majority of cases, there is an extremely high risk that adult women who go missing are not actually missing. They may very well have gone into safe care shelters, avoiding circumstances at home. And this is a serious aspect that needs to be considered when dealing with missing persons. Now, I don't want to do an entire training session on missing persons. There is a commentary on it. But I do want to point out that as an administrator of a social media group, somebody could pick up something, or one of the group members could post on the group, "My wife is missing. She was last seen here, and this is the what she was wearing and the car she was driving. And if you see her, contact me," and they supply their name and their telephone number. Okay, let's just keep it at that point for the time being. A lot of administrators remove that off of the group because there's no case number. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you up front, a case number is not required at all to report a missing person. The most beneficial number that is required when it comes to reporting a missing person is the occurrence book number. There are 2 different numbers. The first number is the number, the OB number is the first number that can be obtained at the time that the person reports another person, a family member, as missing with SAPS. The occurrence book number is required for the recognized flyer producers such as VCSI, National Missing Persons, Pink Ladies, Renegade Search and Rescue, Ground Zero Search and Rescue, Pink, did I say Pink Ladies? Western Cape Missing Persons Unit. They prefer to have an OB number for their own records so that they can track it and everything else. And that's the only reason an OB number is in actual fact required. In addition to that, when you take a look at a case number, or CAS number as it's normally put out, it could be an internal reference number, IR number, or any other type of reference number. These numbers can take 2 to 3 days before they're being produced. Does that then mean that family member or that person whose family member has gone missing must wait 3 days before he can she can raise the alarm on a WhatsApp group. I think that's ludicrous at the end of the day. And any person, any administrator that hears what I've just said and continues to delete those messages, then please, rather recuse yourself and don't be an administrator. You have to give priority to missing persons. But I wanted to talk about that missing woman. Now, that message goes out on the group, and then everybody is searching for her, and everybody starts the reporting. She's at this location or that location, and all we have done ultimately is place her life in danger. And this is where it becomes important that missing persons, women in particular, must in actual fact be reported to SAPS by the family member as a matter of urgency in order for SAPS to determine if there are any underlying circumstances which would then place administrators and dispatchers in a position whereby they can in actual fact remove those messages as per any particular instructions that might come through from reliable sources such as SAPS. But we'll continue with voice note number 42 now. Right, moving on with voice note number 43. 21 October 2024. I apologize. I ended the previous voice note and said I'll continue in 42, but I was in 42. Okay, so we're talking about missing persons, missing adult male, missing adult female. I stated that they can't be dealt with in the same manner because an adult female may in actual fact be not be missing and might have gone into a place of safety or shelter. And now all of a sudden a husband or a boyfriend or an abuser is putting a message out there seeking assistance in finding that person, yet they haven't reported it to SAPS. And then the community comes forward and discloses her location. And of course, an abuser could in actual fact go and beat the living daylights out of her again. So administrators and specifically dispatchers, be very careful with what you are doing with that. In those instances where it's a missing person and she is a female, adult female, especially if she is an adult female and children are involved, take it privately, remove the info of the group, ask that gentleman to go and report to SAPS before it gets posted in any other format. That is imperative that you do so on your groups. And the reason for that is because of the legal responsibility that I've already discussed under the administrative portion of this training. Then there's two other categories of groups that need to be considered, or groups, not groups missing persons, that should be considered without going into too much detail. And the first one is a missing adult male with vulnerabilities. And the second one is a missing adult female with vulnerabilities. And those vulnerabilities could be things like Alzheimer's, dementia. I said dementia, my voice note might have gone dementia. Other medical conditions like diabetes, epilepsy. All of these things could in actual fact have a major impact on what the community and other key role players, stakeholders, and relevant parties need to take into account. Because when you start looking at the overall response that is required, people with dementia, for example, they've got to be given major priority on all groups. It doesn't make a difference if it's a knitting group or if it is an emergency group. No administrator should in actual fact prevent that type of information. Whatever happens, we need to save lives. We need to find those people as quickly as possible. We cannot delay. Dementia patients, they go through bouts of being clear in terms of what they are doing. And then they go through bouts and they got no idea what they are doing. And you can find them kilometers away. Or they might get a lift and you can find them hundreds of kilometers away. So it becomes imperative that any person with vulnerabilities must be given priority on every single WhatsApp group and social media. And in my personal capacity, I actually would say to admins again, if you cannot find the humanity within yourself to ensure that that information is disseminated on your group, regardless of what group it is, besides standing down or stepping down as an admin, really, it is shame on you. Those are the people that need our assistance the most, and we have to give it to them. So even more so when it becomes a medical case, like epilepsy, like sugar diabetes. A person with diabetes can collapse in the street for failing to take their medication. And if they are not identified and seen quickly enough, they can, in actual fact, lose their lives. Right, I'm going to end it off on that one. I think that's just the general census. Look at the commentary I've done on sharing the information of missing persons. Study it in detail so that you can understand the legal aspects underlying that besides the moral and ethical and medical. And we will move on with voice note number 44. Voice note number 45, 22 October 2024. I am continuing with the missing persons. In this segment, I want to concentrate specifically on missing children. Now, the first thing that both admins and dispatchers need to understand, I know I may have covered some of this under the administrative portion, but the dispatchers also need to take heed of certain aspects of what happens on the groups when photographs, etc., of children are posted to the group. Now, there is no law that stipulates that you may not post photographs of children. And in particular, if the family member, the mother, the father, or even the caregiver posts such information of a child that has gone missing. It must be noted that missing children do not, or the publishing of photographs of missing children is not included in the POPI Act. So any person who starts screaming POPI Act, they must be told that it's got nothing to do with it. However, the Children's Act in particular has made approximately 58 references to in the best interest of a child. And that is the only thing that must be considered. Therefore, the minute a parent or a caregiver posts any information on any social media platform that a child has gone missing, that child must be given 100% priority over every WhatsApp group, whether or not it is an emergency group or a knitting club group. Emergency groups, while you might be dealing in crime and you sit back and you think, but this is a missing person, it has got nothing to do with crime, and you get over this whole aspect of the POPI Act and children's photographs may not be posted. Once you've realized that you are in the wrong on that, and now suddenly you're going to turn around and say, but this is not a crime. I want to say this to administrators, and I want to say this to group members, and I want to say this to dispatchers. How do you know that that child is not missing as a result of a crime? It is not your place, nor do you as an individual have any authority or right to determine that no crime has been committed. The only persons who may do that are the investigating officers and the National Prosecuting Authority, etc. It is not up to you as an individual. And if you do not allow the posting in particular of missing persons, and in particular, even more importantly, missing children and missing children with vulnerabilities, then again I say to you, please stop being an administrator, because you are not serving your community, and you may very well become responsible for the death of a child. Just this morning, I was reading a newspaper article whereby a child had been reported missing in Soweto 2 weeks ago. And despite the community coming together and undertaking various aspects of searching the immediate area, the child was not found. Yet yesterday, the child was found in an open field, dead, deceased. What was surprising about the article was that the initial reporting of the child being missing, it was stated that the child was last seen playing in the yard while the parent was making tea. And when the parent came outside to bring the child in after completing the tea making task, the child was missing. When the child was found yesterday, which is 2 weeks later, the child was found wrapped up in blankets. Now, it'll be up to the investigators to decide how the child got from being playing in a yard to being wrapped up in blankets. Now, I know a lot of people will have a lot of assumptions, or could make a lot of assumptions, and there could be various thoughts and everything else. It's not my place to categorically state what in actual fact did occur there, but there is a lot of potential risk that it is possible that that child was kidnapped and was then wrapped in a blanket and then placed in a field near the residential property. You see, and that's where the crime could come in, and therefore you as an admin have got no right to decide whether or not that should be posted. Bottom line, missing children in particular, as well as missing children with vulnerabilities, should be posted on your emergency groups regardless. There is one other point I would like to cover, and that is, if your emergency group consists of key role players and stakeholders like the private security service providers, or you've got SAPS personnel or Metro Police on there, ambulance services, you must remember these are the guys that have got multiple ears and eyes on the ground. And once they are made aware of the fact that that child is missing, then they are in a better position to find that child safely and alive instead of dead and wrapped up in a blanket in a field. Always remember that. Okay, this was a bit of a long voice note. Let's move on with voice note number 46. Okay, in closing, for missing children in particular, specifically on the dispatcher side of the training, this is voice note number 46, 22 October 2024. I'd like to close off by reminding administrators and dispatchers that you could be legally liable and responsible for anything that you allow being posted on the group, but also for what is not posted or in particular deleted from a WhatsApp group. Now, it could be said that a parent posts a missing child report on your group, and as an administrator, you delete it, or as a dispatcher, you in actual fact ask that person, it could be 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's not many other people on there, but the parent is, needless to say, posted the missing child report. And as a dispatcher, you ask that parent to remove it, which they do. And a couple of weeks later, or even a couple of hours later, the child is found dead. always remember that that parent may, in actual fact, or has got the right, whether they'd win in a court of law or not is irrelevant. The fact is they can bring either criminal or civil charges against you as a dispatcher or as an administrator, and claim that due to your lack of action, and take note, because of your lack of action or inaction, for a better term, you could be responsible for the death of the child. And I'd just like to explain that yet again. And what do I mean by that? If the parent posts a message and the child is, or the message is deleted, or they remove it on the request of a dispatcher, and the child appears a couple of days later and is found deceased, that parent could in actual fact be monitoring the group, whereby another resident on the group could say, I saw that child. Or some other person in authority who is on the group could say, yes, I saw that child. If I had known about it, I could have posted, and maybe the child could have been found alive. And that's where the legal liability and legal responsibility comes into play. And I think it falls under culpable homicide, because you're not directly involved in the actual death, but you are contributing to the actual death of the child. So had the post remained on the emergency group or the knitting club group, and the other members in the group had seen it, they could have actually notified the parents and also SAPS, once the case was opened, that the child was seen at a particular location, which could have led to the safe recovery of that child. And due to the fact that you deleted that message or requested that that message be deleted, you have now played a role in ensuring that the community was not aware of the fact that your child was missing. And on that basis, you could be held criminally liable, but definitely could be held liable on a civil matter in a court of law. And of course, all of this is really and truly going to be up to the courts. However, it's not something you as an admin or a dispatcher should play with, because the minute that a parent brings those charges against you, it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of rands to defend your case in a court of law. And then always remember that if one administrator deletes it off of the group, all of the administrators are jointly liable for that action as well. So it won't only be you or the dispatcher, it will be the administrators as well. Therefore, as administrators, missing persons should be posted to the group. But there is one caveat to take into account. If it is an emergency group, it is perfectly understandable that if somebody posts a message of a person who has gone missing 2 years ago or even 2 months ago, then maybe it doesn't actually apply to the group. It must be something that has occurred within the last 2 to 3 hours, or even within the last 6 to 8 hours, because always remember that it does take time for parents and caregivers to get to SAPS police station. It takes time to complete the 55A. I hope I got that right now. I'm so tired, I don't know whether I'm coming or going. But it also takes time to have the flyer produced before there is a recognized flyer that could be in actual fact distributed and disseminated. So I'm inclined to say, especially when it comes to children, if the flyer only comes out after about 12 hours, 12 to 18 hours, then, still consider it, allow it to go through. But if it is something of, a week, 2 weeks, or even a month before, then sure, I'd rather recommend that that person post it on a local community group, as it is not something that is current and sort of ongoing at this moment in time. Okay, I'm going to end off voice note number 46 on that note, and let's see how we, in actual fact, move on with the next set of voice notes. Let's move on with voice note number 47, and it is the 22nd of October 2024. Now, this applies to both dispatchers and administrators, and in more particular with regards to administrators. Guys, when it comes to the logos that are utilized on the groups, there is one thing that I need to caution everybody about, and that is the use of copyrighted images, or specifically the use of both the Red Cross emblem, being a red cross on a white background, or the SAPS logo. Now, I just want to read from the SAPS logos, or the SAPS copyright webpage, where it is not necessary to request permission to link to any pages on the site. However, under the title heading the South African Police Badge, SAPS has categorically stated that the badge of the South African Police Service, SAPS, was registered on 31 October 1995 at the Bureau of Heraldry in terms of Section 5A of the Heraldry Act number 18 of 1962. The purpose of the registration is to protect the badge against unauthorized use. Sections 21 and 22 of the same Act allow the SAPS to formulate control measures in the usage of its official badge. Written permission must be obtained from the National Commissioner of SAPS to use the badge or any badge similar in appearance internally and or externally on the basis thereof that the status and dignity of this badge is to be guided by the principle that the status and dignity of this badge, which symbolizes the corporate character and identity of SAPS, must at all times be safeguarded and protected with pride. In addition to the copyright placed on the SAPS emblem, I want to draw everybody's attention to the use of the Red Cross emblem. Now, there is the South African Red Cross Society and Legal Protection of Certain Emblems Act, Act number 10 of 2007. And this particular act specifically protects the Red Cross emblem under Part 3, Section 6 of the relevant act. The emblems of a Red Cross. Now, there's a particular note. There are various emblems globally, internationally. There's the Red Cross emblem, being a red cross. There's the red crescent moon, which is a half moon in red. There's the red lion, and there's the red diamond. And all four of them are actually protected on international conventions, even though the South African Red Cross Act number 7, as I've stipulated, only mentions the emblems of the Red Cross and the red crescent moon are protected in the manner provided for in this act and in the conventions. And the conventions they are referring to are the Geneva Conventions. And the Geneva Conventions specifies all four different emblems. Just for your general purposes, there are different emblems for different parts of the country, of the world, because, you know, we have certain religious beliefs in certain areas of the globally. And for example, one religion doesn't accept the red crescent or the Red Cross, and others don't accept the Red Cross. It's against their religious beliefs and that. And this is why the latest emblem to be introduced was the red diamond, which appears to be far more neutral amongst religious beliefs and systems on that aspect. So the use of the emblem in terms of the Act under Section 7 says an emblem may only be used as a sign that persons or equipment fall under the protection of the conventions. Therefore, no WhatsApp group will do so from our perspective. Under 7B, to show that persons or equipment are connected to the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, of which, again, none of us apply. And of course, with the authorization of the minister or in respect to personnel and equipment of the South African National Defence Force and the Minister of Defence under Section C. Again, none of us would apply there and or otherwise authorized by the conventions under Section D. And I can tell you, in terms of the conventions and the protocols, the use of the Red Cross may not be used either. So please, wherever you have got groups where you are utilizing the Red Cross, remove those images and find another image. If you are using SAP's emblem, remove that emblem. You are contravening the law. If you are using other copyright protected, like Netcare 911, ER24 emblems or whatever, there again, you might be contravening the Copyright Act by utilizing those emblems without their permission. And another emblem that must be protected at all costs is the Star of Life. That is, whether it is a blue one or a red one, it is irrelevant. Whatever you do, please do not put those up, because they do signify that that particular group or association, there's an association to a paramedical level on the administrator's perspective, and therefore definitely in terms of the health regulations, the Star of Life is a protected emblem. It may not be put on vehicles, for example, except where the crew are ILS and above. And if you look at it on that basis, that means any person, any group, any structure, any vehicle, it would extend into that arena as well as just the vehicle. So please do not make use of those emblems either. Okay, that concludes voice note number 7, also a pretty long one, unfortunately. Let's now move on to voice note number 48. And on this particular voice note, I briefly want to cover reports regarding gunshot victims. Any time that a person is shot, and of course it's the 23rd of October 2024, whenever a person or whenever a report comes through that a person is shot, the dispatchers, as you already know, you need certain information like contact on scene, contact telephone number, what the problem is, the location, and the pin drop. But one other thing that I think dispatchers in particular should in actual fact consider is asking the question, where on the body has the victim been shot? For example, you'd be looking at arms and legs, or the abdomen, the stomach, the chest, or the head, the face, the head, the neck. And for me, this becomes quite important in order to determine what services are needed, not just by letting GPG know, for example, that a person has been shot. You need to tell GPG or IER that the person has been shot in the face or the person has been shot in the chest. Now, even though bullet wounds can travel throughout the abdomen and the chest, etc., it does become a little bit of a gray area as to what priority, and only the paramedical staff on scene would be able to determine the actual priority category, i.e. priority 1, 2, 3, or 4. However, I think it is important to let GPG and any other private ambulance service know that it is a gunshot head or it is a gunshot chest, because a gunshot chest and a gunshot head have the higher probability of being a priority 1 incident over a gunshot abdomen, for example. Please bear in mind that a gunshot abdomen, that bullet can travel up into the chest. it can still have an effect on the chest. It can still make it a priority 1 call. And that, of course, will be determined by the paramedics on site. However, by letting the GPG control room via IER or via using the 112 know that it is a gunshot abdomen versus chest and the head, they will also then be able to ascertain whether they should, in actual fact, send out a response vehicle before the ambulance is expected to arrive. It also gives the other volunteer medical personnel and paramedics on the groups to also determine whether or not it's a call that they should consider as a priority 1 and actually attend to the victim. Now, in most instances, or the higher risk of a gunshot chest and a head becoming a P4 is extremely high. And it is imperative that we try and get medical attention out there as quickly as possible. And on that basis, again, by the medical personnel and the EMS and rescue personnel on a group being made aware of the fact that it is a head and a chest versus an abdomen or the legs and arms, then, as I say, they can also respond quicker and go and provide initial paramedical assistance to those particular patients, which would in actual fact reduce the number of P4s. Shootings, unfortunately, definitely do have a higher rate of a P1 becoming a P4, but whatever we do from an administrator perspective or from a dispatcher's perspective by passing on the relevant information, it's in the same manner as I've mentioned it before. You've got a motor vehicle accident, ask if people are trapped. There are times even bystanders can determine that person is trapped, or at least there's a great expectation that they are trapped in the vehicle and they can't get out, and therefore fire and rescue is required in order to extricate the patient out of the vehicle. Same thing applies with a gunshot as well. So always bear that in mind. We're coming to the end of the series, but there is another voice note that I'm going to bring up. So let's continue then with and bring a voice note number 48 to a closure. Voice note number 49, 23rd of October 2024. I may have covered this in the administrator section of the training with regards to providing a medical advice. But in the event dispatchers are only listening to the dispatcher section, I need to make it quite clear to every dispatcher as well as admin. There is no way that it is permitted for any person who is not registered with the Health Professional Council of South Africa, HPCSA, that can give any form of medical advice on any social media platform or even on a one-to-one, person-to-person basis. It is against the law. You cannot, unless you are ILS and above and a doctor. Doctors can prescribe certain medications, but you may not even advise a person to go and get a Disprin or an aspirin, because you as an individual do not know what allergies that person might have, and the contraindications of that medication could kill them or put them in hospital. And then remember that you are legally liable and responsible for your actions on the group, even as a dispatcher, more so as a dispatcher and administrator. The minute that somebody posts any medical advice on a group, even the paramedical staff are inclined not to provide any medical advice via telephones, via social media posts, WhatsApp groups, etc., then ultimately at the end of the day, They won't do it because they know they cannot see the actual circumstances of the patient. Treating a patient is a hands-on, how can I put it? It has to be done on a hands-on basis. And that is why you can go to a GP and he can check you out and you can go home and then he can have a chat with you on the telephone because he's had hands-on with you. So please, whatever you do as a dispatcher or an administrator, never, ever, ever give any medical advice of any sort under any circumstance for any reason or any person, regardless of the amount of pressure that people might put on you. But in addition to that, ask the people that are posting that medical advice to remove it if you are a dispatcher, and as an administrator, delete it forthwith. Do not delay. And I want to end voice note number 49 on that note. I think I did say it was the 23rd of October, 2024. Okay, let's start off with voice note number 49 on the 23rd of October, 2024 by stating, at this stage, this looks like the last voice note with regards to this training. There will be many instances that come up in the future, which might in actual fact necessitate the need to add additional VNs to the series, perhaps to cover specific topics, which I have not thought about at this stage, or which may only manifest themselves, over a period of time or whatever the case might be. But for both administrators and dispatchers, and that applies to group members as well, one thing you must always remember is that you've got an export function that is available on your a cell phone in particular for a group. So if you go into the description and scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's export, and that export chat gives you an opportunity to actually export the entire content of every single thing that has happened within the specific group. And you can send it to an email account. You can send it to other facilities like WhatsApp or Telegram. And there's a couple of options, whatever options might be available for your particular version of WhatsApp. So what I tend to do from a legal perspective on a regular basis at times, or when I suspect that there is something that has transpired on a group which may warrant keeping a record of, a physical record of, I will do an export to email and I will include all of the media files. And it's important to understand that when people are sending emojis and people are sending voice notes and all the rest of it, photographs and videos, if you don't include the media content, none of that will be added to the export facility. So what happens is if you send it to an email, you'll receive an email with a .zip file, and if you unzip your file, you'll find there's an underscore chat, and that will give you a text message which actually provides the date and the time and the person who sent it, either by their telephone number or by the name that you've got them saved on your contact list, and then the actual message. Now, many times the reactions and everything else that are posted are also presented. There's thumbs ups and, the praying hands and the thank you hands and whatever else the case might be. They are included. But then when you've got all of these on-duty, off-duty emojis that are coming through, it will just specify a reference number .webp, and that's it. There's no indication of what it is. Now you've got to go and have a look. Now you'll have to go and have a look in the folder where you unzip that file for that particular image. And this is why I am personally against these emojis that are posted to WhatsApp groups. Unlike voice notes also have a particular sequence number. So in your chat text file, it'll give that WhatsApp sequence number. And then it's either, I think it's .ogg or it's got some other extension depending on how you export it. But in your folder, you will have, you can find that particular file, voice note. And of course, it's got a date time stamp to it as well. So you can follow the sequence of all of the voice notes of a particular conversation. So from a legal perspective, admins and dispatchers, it's an idea for you to export these chats, even though you might not need them for a long time to come. One word of caution, if your grouping is too big, you might have to use an external file. Like, for example, I know on the iPhone, they tell you it's too big, and then you got to use the iCloud download or whatever. And if you don't go and download that file using a web page URL, then there's an expiry date on it, and then you lose the content of your file. So always make sure that if it says you're going to use an external force or factor because the zip file will become too big, please use the URL link that is provided in the email to go and download it and save it to your PC. So on that note, I'm going to close off voice note number 59. And of course, it's Chad Milam, the director of one of the 3 directors of disaster relief, CERT being the Community Emergency Response Team's volunteer network. Thanks all.